Imagine for a second, it's the middle of the night and you're lost in the ocean. It's dark, it's cold, and it feels hopeless. That's the universe we find ourselves in the game and the movie Iron Lung. Except the ocean they're trapped in is space, and the only escape from it is an ocean of blood. Now, you might be saying, how can an ocean of blood be an escape? That sounds awful. For us, that is awful, but for life in general, probably not. Blood is an interesting thing. Its primary job is to deliver food and oxygen to our cells, but it's also used to transfer waste out of our bodies and plays a key role in our immune system. It carries white blood cells, which are kind of like your 80-year-old uncle, but instead of hating minorities, it hates viruses and intruders. This is our first problem. The movie's pretty clear that they are certain it's human blood, so I can't really make up a substitute to replace it more reasonably. The first problem this creates is, in reality, humans have 8 different blood types. And aside from 2 of the same blood types, there are no 2 blood types that are compatible with each other. To get what I mean better, there is a universal donor and a universal recipient if you look at a blood type chart, but if you reverse which one is donating and which one is receiving, they're not mutually compatible anymore. So AB positive can donate to type O negative, but type O negative can't donate to AB positive. If you did inject a person with the wrong blood type, it would result in their immune system treating that blood as a foreign invader and often complicating whatever's going on that you need the blood transfusion to begin with even further. So if we had an ocean of blood filled with all different kinds of blood types, some of them will be attacking each other and some of them will just be being attacked, in theory, if they're behaving the same way that they do in the human body. Now, being in an ocean of blood, this could cause some different behaviors in the blood when it mixes. There could be a different kind of immune system that's going on within it, if there even is an immune system to begin with. If there is no immune system, then we have no problems here. But assuming that it is blood in the same way blood is in your body, we would have a big problem there. So this gives us 2 options. Either the blood is lacking an immune system or is made up of one type of blood type. The backbone of your immune system, at least in your bloodstream, is your white blood cells. Their job is to find and trap antigens and send their location off to other white blood cells. There are also B cells, another type of white blood cell that release antibodies on an invader when they come into contact with it. White blood cells are made from bone marrow, and obviously on a moon, it's not really made of bones. So it wouldn't take any crazy jumps to assume that there are no white blood cells in the blood on this moon. But it would take a jump to assume any life could survive without them. Like the movie established, this is human blood, and human blood is susceptible to diseases, and without any kind of defense measures or antibodies to protect the blood from diseases, it'll quickly become a vacation home for bacteria and viruses and whatever else to spread and breed freely. Now, lucky for life on the moon, these diseases and bacteria and viruses would have evolved alongside people, and there haven't been any people on the moon or objects that came in contact with people. Even if it only had mild diseases, the blood with no immune system would have no chance to fight them off. Well, that sucks. Dropping something like a submarine that has obviously come into contact with people could be devastating for a blood ocean. Even if it only had mild diseases, the blood with no immune system would have no chance to fight them off. Now, this situation could be the case, and it might just be a matter of time before the blood ocean is completely disease-infected. Or we could consider option 2. The blood does have an immune system to fight off disease and infection, but this would also result in only one blood type being able to survive in the blood ocean. Which I imagine could happen in one of 2 ways. Either the gladiator approach or the purist approach. The purist approach will require one type of blood flooding into the blood ocean and excluding all others as a protective measure. The gladiator approach is a lot more fun. It would have all blood types flowing in at the same time and fighting to the death to see which one would just prevail over all the others. This would likely result in type O negative being the victor, because no other blood types see it as a threat, but it sees all other blood types as a threat. Another thing to note is we see these vents in both the game and the movie at the bottom of the blood ocean. This could either be the site for the blood coming up to begin with, or could be where white blood cells are being formed and made, similar to how they're formed and made in your body via the bone marrow. Now, I could just be grabbing at straws, and this could be completely unrelated to the blood entirely. Or it could be the case that they have another purpose that I didn't think of.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Halfway through the movie, the sub Simon is in starts blaring warning signals telling him that his hull is breached. Even after the breach is sealed, it continues to sound the alarm, and justifiably, Simon smashes it out of anger. But soon after this, he starts to hear a voice come through again. Whoever's operating this radio that is communicating with Simon thinks that Simon is in a ship orbiting the planet. Because of this, it seems like the voice coming through is coming from another ship that was lost in the blood ocean. After finding out that that is not what Simon is, it directs him towards an object that we still don't know very much about. But we can safely say that it holds significant importance to the life forms in the blood ocean. And if you have watched the movie or caught on by now, the voice that's coming through and speaking to Simon is not actually coming from the speaker. And that, of course, leaves the question, where is it coming from then? Now, this movie, of course, is supposed to have a little bit of mythological elements towards it. And because of that, some people have suggested that this voice is communicating with him telepathically. But for this project, I want to kind of stick towards the biological and scientific aspects of how this could actually be possible, not necessarily the intended lore for the actual movie. And for my first speculative biology video, I think I did come up with a pretty good explanation for why this is possible. I would just like to note that if you see any holes in my ideas here, or have any better ideas of yourself, please leave them in the comments. I would be happy and very grateful for you to exploit where there are weaknesses in my reasoning, because that will make me smarter, and it could encourage you to think about something that nobody else has thought about before. Now, nothing in nature uses any kind of true idea of what telepathy is, being a supernatural connection between two conscious beings. So obviously, it wouldn't be at play in a natural or purely biological environment like this. But there are other things in nature that can cause you to hear or see things that aren't actually there. Like a hallucination, which seems obvious, and it is. But the more fantastical side of it is that it relayed what seems to be reliable information to Simon that he couldn't have known. This happened when it gave him directions to the anomaly I mentioned earlier. Now, it's possible that the anomaly was a hallucination as well, but whatever conscious force this is that is manipulating him or invading his mind seems to also have its own goals in mind that it sticks to, despite Simon's constant battle to resist them. So at the very least, this doesn't seem to be your typical hallucination that happens when you would eat a real-life mushroom or something of that nature. In my opinion, this is pointing towards something with intelligence manipulating his mind directly to achieve a goal that it wants to happen. Now, throwing out telepathy here makes this a lot harder on us. Now, what I'm going to suggest here is a type of single-cellular organism that has the ability to be influenced by outside ultrasounds. Now, some insects do use ultrasounds to communicate with each other, so this isn't as far-fetched as it might seem on the surface. Now, I'm invoking a outside force as well because I don't think single cellular organisms would have the cognitive ability to influence something in the way that this voice influences Simon. Now, as many of you might know, there is a type of fungus that can control ants and have them reach a certain elevation so it can spread its spores more easily. This fungus does this by infiltrating the ant's musculature, not so much its brain. So it's not super intelligent, it's more hijacking the ant's muscles. It doesn't actually take over its brain or anything like that, like this single cellular organism we're talking about in Simon's case would be doing, and on the scale of a human on top of that. There also is, of course, rabies, but this will usually result in heightened aggression, not the kind of reasoning we saw the voice in Simon's head attempt. And definitely not the understanding of Simon's navigation equipment that this voice also understood and was able to give him directions to a specific coordinate. And for the larger organism, it would not only be advantageous to use ultrasounds to communicate with the smaller one, but also for navigation inside of the blood ocean. We do get some photos and a bit of footage from the surface of the moon, and the little we do get shows us a dark, cloudy surface that is not letting very much light into the ocean. So things like eyes and photoreceptive organs would probably be less useful than something like echolocation would be. And some parts of the blood ocean that we do see show tunnel systems underneath it, which would also be incredibly advantageous for an organism to have echolocation abilities to navigate those. On top of all of that, there is still another application for the ability to produce ultrasounds. It is likely that the hardest part for the single-celled organism to accomplish is to enter the body and cross the blood-brain barrier. The entering the body part can be explained by the blood dripping from the ceiling of the submarine onto Simon's clothes at the beginning of the movie. In real life, we have examples of certain parasites that are able to infect somebody's skin and destroy it to make it more easier for them to enter into that person's body. We see evidence to support this at the end of the movie when Simon removes his bandages and finds that his skin is withering away under them. The movie also states that the blood is harmful for people to ingest themselves, more so than even regular blood might be. Another sub sent down into the blood ocean was the SM-8, and from recordings shown in the movie, it seems like they ran out of water and resorted to drinking the blood from the blood ocean. And in the same log, it expresses how there was a significant negative reaction directly after ingesting the blood. Now, that's how this single-celled parasite could get into the body, or SCP for short, but that's not the only problem. In reality, it is incredibly hard to get past the blood-brain barrier, or the triple B, but an outside force could loosen it more easily. There is a method that doctors use in real life to loosen the triple B. Inside of your blood vessels, there are tiny bubbles, 1 to 2 micrometers across. When these bubbles reach the triple B and are exposed to ultrasounds, they will expand and deflate rapidly, weakening the blood-brain barrier where they are. In real life, this takes about 4 minutes to do and is done by a device being put at the back of your neck to focus the area that the ultrasounds are being produced and reduce the same thing happening to blood vessels around the rest of your body. If this method is being used to transfer the SCP to Simon's brain, it would be incredibly hard to focus it specifically at the triple B and could have unintended consequences to the blood vessels around the rest of his body. I think the most likely time for this to have happened is while Simon was knocked out for, I think it was 2 to 3 days. This gives plenty of time for the SCP to cross the triple B, and also gives us an insight to what Simon's body's reaction could have been to the constant bombardment of those intense ultrasounds. And this all explains the how, but not necessarily the why. Like I mentioned before, the ecosystem that we're dealing with now is a very unique one, mainly because there's no need to really have predators or for something to evolve predation. In real life, the ecosystem or the food chain starts with plants, and plants get their energy from the sun. And then from there, other organisms convert plants into energy. Because of this, plants will fight for sunlight. We see the best examples of this in the Amazon rainforest, where there is a constant struggle for canopy space. But in the movie Iron Lung, the ecosystem that we're shown does not appear like it has places where sunlight can be absorbed on the moon really at all. I mentioned before that we got some glimpse of the surface, and it appears like there is a large storm brewing above everything else. This would make it extremely difficult for photosynthetic organisms to evolve in the first place. The base form of energy that I hypothesized to be at play here would be the blood in the ocean, assuming that we're getting a constant flow of it, coming from somewhere else. To maximize this source of energy, I would imagine two main type of organisms: cruising organisms that would move like a baleen whale or a filter feeder to gather as much blood as they can, making their own current as they go, and sitting organisms that would let natural currents within the blood ocean bring more blood towards them. The former leading to a more mobile lifestyle, and the latter leading to more of a solitary, non-moving lifestyle, which could also bring the advantage of seeming less threatening. Early ancestors of both might look more like a jellyfish, leading both the cruising lifestyle, but obviously less efficient. Later, the sitting organisms would opt to let blood come to them, leading a more solitary lifestyle, which would allow them to not expend as much energy. They would also probably use the current to distribute their young, to reduce competition from them. This is a common strategy we see in many aquatic species today. And the cruising organisms would be able to take advantage of the abundance of space in the open sea. But despite the abundance of food, there no doubtably would eventually be need for competition. One trait that could evolve to be competitive could be a larger surface area. This would allow organisms to absorb more of the blood around them within the ocean, leading to having more food ready for them. Because blood contains everything that's needed for your body to sustain itself, an organism living in the blood ocean would only need to absorb that blood into them to satisfy their eating and drinking requirements, which makes it different from the filter feeding style that baleen whales use. They would need to allow the blood to get into their body somehow, but not really filter out anything else from it. So this would make their filter feeding style quite different from how modern filter feeders today, or even in the Earth's history, would have used filter feeding. Instead, many organisms might just have one singular hole going through the entirety of their body, allowing blood to come in one way and sift through and go out the other way. A system like this could allow constant blood flow throughout the animal as long as it continues to move. Because they're completely surrounded by blood, another way to do it may be by allowing the blood to just seep into their bodies where they can absorb it into individual cells. A way they might do this in a competitive environment could be becoming extremely massive, but also very hollow, limiting the amount of blood that's allowed to the rest of the organisms around them, but keeping a great amount of it within themselves as reserves. Another way to reduce competition could be just killing it, in which case they may evolve predatory features, but not carnivorous features, if you get what I mean. I don't think large organisms would be eating each other only because of the abundance of food already around them. It would be a great source of energy for them to exploit if they could, but I think the evolutionary leaps needed to process another animal's flesh just aren't there. To go from filter feeding to processing flesh would be a huge leap, keeping in mind many of these animals likely don't even have stomachs. But a niche that can be filled usually doesn't stay unfilled for very long. What I think would be more likely than large animals feeding on the flesh is a type of single-celled organism that would evolve the capabilities to turn that flesh into nutrients. Now, if we had extremely large behemoths fighting each other over territory space, and single-celled organisms that are able to convert their flesh into nutrients, while also considering the fact that these single-celled organisms would probably be extremely hard to kill for the behemoths because they don't have the proper weaponry to do it. I think that an easy step after that would be a symbiotic relationship between at least one or two species of both single-celled organism and behemoth class organism. If a species of single-celled organism was able to provide some kind of advantage to a behemoth class one, it would increase the probability of the single-celled organism surviving because it'll have more food from the more kills that the behemoth class would be making. And this brings us to the main antagonist of the movie, called the eel. The eel from Ireland is a massive underwater or under blood behemoth. The movie doesn't give us a direct size estimate for it, but there are some ways that we can kind of figure this out. Now, I do biology a lot better than I do math, but a guy on Reddit named Giraffe Strong, with a couple numbers at the end of his name, estimated it at being around 130 to 150 feet long. And I'll put up how he got to that conclusion on screen now. For reference, the largest land animal to ever be recorded by science was an individual, not the general species, an individual of blue whale. Now, there is a longer animal called siphonophores, but they are incredibly thin. And this might make a couple of Spinosaurus fans mad, but just because you're longer than something doesn't make you larger than it. And the eel isn't just long, it's also pretty chunky and had some massive jaws on it. Now, like I predicted, despite having massive jaws, it doesn't appear like it has the capabilities to actually process flesh. And it likely used these adaptations to eliminate competition, like I mentioned before. But there's more threats than just competition. There's also outside invaders that we have to take into account here, like I kind of mentioned before when talking about the blood, if it had an immune system or not. Like I mentioned, the blood could be particularly susceptible to foreign diseases, and with the state the galaxy was left in after the Quiet Rapture, it makes it much more probable that an alien life form might step foot onto the moon. And life on the moon might have already evolved the adaptations they needed in order to solve this problem. For one, many Leviathan-classed organisms would have the capabilities to dispatch invaders, because they would have to do it to invaders into their territories that are actually from the moon. But there's something else that's pretty odd about them. They show a remarkable level of intelligence. I say this because their lifestyle should lead to them being very aggressive, but they show an incredible amount of restraint when they are stalking Simon or the operator in the game version. Well, the movie version of the game in the Iron Lung game. It seems like they're trying to learn from the invaders. The only hypothesis I could put together for this is that it has something to do with the SCP. I believe that it would have formed a symbiotic relationship with the eel in the same way I mentioned it would be for other Leviathan-classed creatures. It seems like the SCP and the eel are doing more than just communicating with each other. It seems like they're sharing the same will. When invading Simon's mind, the SCP uses the same voice as one of the crew members of the SM-8. And it also has a incredible understanding of how the submarines work. At the end of the movie, Ava begs Simon to grab something from the bottom of the SM-13 and make sure it survives the inevitable destruction of the sub. So Simon attaches a floaty to it. During this whole ordeal, both the voice in his head, that's likely the SCP, starts to beg him to stop doing it, and the eel attacks him after stalking him for what seems like at least a week at this point. Both of these organisms should have no idea that this device could hurt them in any way, any more than the sub could have hurt them. This leads me to believe that the SCP is able to understand Simon's thoughts in a deep way, and even copy some of those thoughts into its own mind so that it understands how the threats work better. This could also explain why it took so long to attack, because it wanted to invade his mind and understand his memories. This may also explain the odd design for the eel. It has human feet and hands lining its body, but when you bring those feet up to the same scale as the eel is, they couldn't possibly be real human feet or real human hands. As a side effect of invading an organism's mind, it might also adopt some of their fears or understand their fears better and alter its appearance in order to match what those are. For any person, I think randomly assigned limbs on top of a monster's body would be terrifying. This is the only explanation that I thought reasonable when covered with the constraints of what is biologically possible. I don't think this is a mutation of any kind. Again, that would, this is a massive organism. I think it would be ridiculous to think that a human mutated it into it based on just energy. It also has another weird ability. It seems like it's able to produce oxygen through its tentacle-like appendages. At the end of the movie, there are these tentacle-like appendages that invade the submarine. These kind of go along with when the eel decided to attack them. And oddly enough, when these tentacles start to come into the submarine, the oxygen levels, which were at near zero, begin to go up again. This could be another method used by the eel to help keep its prey alive long enough to invade its mind. But it is odd that we only see oxygen used in this case. Obviously, things like plants use CO2, and if another alien came onto the planet, it will likely have completely different respiration methods and needs than humans do. But it could have also been releasing other chemicals as well, and we just had no way to tell that it was. There's one more aspect of this that we haven't had a chance to look at yet. At the beginning of the movie, there appears to be a skeleton found by Simon, or more accurately, a skull. The first thing that I noticed when looking at it is what appears to be a nasal cavity, which would only be necessary if it was breathing air, or at least had some kind of respiratory system similar to our own, which would be highly ineffective in a blood ocean. Things like lungs are incredibly inefficient at breathing in liquids, like perfluorochemical, I'll put the word up on screen, I can't pronounce that, liquids. These are chemicals that we're able to do oxygen exchange with, but still remain in a liquid state. All modern versions of these require a pump to assist your lungs in the actual breathing part of it. Replacing one of these liquids with blood, which is even more viscous than many of these liquids that are used, seemed so inefficient that it wouldn't even be possible for an animal to evolve a system like this. But of course, this is assuming a lot of things. It could very well just be another Leviathan-class creature living in the blood ocean. I don't think it's viable that this organism is from the surface because of the lack of life present that we see, other than just what's at the surface of the blood ocean being blood, obviously, and the constant storms, which would make the environment very harsh for life to even get the first grasps up there. There is also a second hole behind where the eyes would go, which appears to resemble what a temporal fenestra looks like in many modern mammals. But it could also be a second eye hole, which I think strengthens the idea that this is an alien species because all other organisms in the iron lung universe seem to only have 2 eyes. A trait like 4 eyes could also be a sign of great taxonomic difference, like it is in real life. The ancestor that splits us off from other non-2-eyed organisms like spiders existed a very, very, very long time ago. There are a couple of exceptions, like tuatars. They have a light-sensitive spot on the top of their heads. But since vertebrates diverged from invertebrates, well, that's not an official name, but invertebrate-like animals, they have remained pretty good on the 2-eye rule. Anyway, thanks a bunch for watching. This video should be marking a new trend for me of bi-weekly uploads, hopefully. I still got school to do, I work, but I do really enjoy learning about biology and animals and whatnot. And I also like sharing those, I like sharing the things that I find about them. So I'm hoping to upload a bit more often, that's for sure. I do have a couple more videos in the chamber when this should be released. I'm doing a video on ticks because the season for ticks is starting to come to a point, and this one's supposed to be a pretty bad one. I also did a bioactive terrarium for my gargoyle gecko, which I'll be turning into a video. I have the end result up on my Instagram and TikTok pages if you want to go look at those as well. And of course, if you have any ideas that you want me to do or are interested in seeing explored, I'm still a pretty small page, so I'll definitely be reading the comments, and as long as it's not something inappropriate, I'll probably do it. If you're interested in videos similar to this style, I took great inspiration from Thought Potato. He has an amazing catalog of speculative evolution and biology videos on mythical creatures. I think he just recently released a video on thunderbirds, which is one of my favorite ones to date, honestly. I will leave a link to his channel in my description. Great example of it. I am the oldest of 8. My younger siblings are playing often upstairs. I've asked them to be quiet many times. Not really wanting to do it, so I hope you can bear through maybe the odd kids screaming in the back of one of my clips, or like that. Hope you can bear through that, if you can. I'm hoping to do some of these other videos in the future in my trailer. Well, not my trailer, but my family's trailer. My dad needed it for work today, so I wasn't able to. But, yes. Awesome.
No.
Stop the cow.
Bad dog.
Oh, hell no! What the dog doing?
Do the